Hi, Todd Lowry here. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about regenerative braking. Um, Regenerative braking is one form of energy recovery that was began to be employed in locomotives in the late 1800s in England. The Sprague Electric and Railway and Motor Company in 1886 started putting motors at each of their wheels to slow their locomotives down or recapture some of the energy that was used in braking. Um, in doing so, they acquired about a 17% efficiency and less wear on friction parts. These were economic motivators and primarily drove the design of the technology at the time. As we moved forward out of that era into a more industrialized and polluted world, environmental concerns became more of a motivator, but not before there was a paradigm shift. And the paradigm shift occurred roughly around 1973 when there was an oil embargo, and then again in '79 when we had large lines for oil, for gasoline. People would consumers would go to a more fuel efficient vehicle for cost, basically, but then that opened the door for concerns about the environment. And then also a lot of pre-existing toxicity, smog, as those embargoes lifted and fuel was able to be purchased on a grander scale. A lot of people went kind of hog wild buying all the fuel and created a lot of smog. Well, with this environmental consciousness shifted the way we look at applications of technologies like regenerative braking and dynamic braking. The difference between dynamic and regenerative is dynamic really uses up the energy immediately, and regenerative actually can put it into storage and use it later. And so we apply that in a sense to the braking, but it can be applied across the board and to even non-mechanical systems. But in terms of braking, it's just one of a component of many other green energies that we find in green technologies, including lighter composite materials, hybrid and electric vehicles, uh, better power storage. Elon Musk came up with this awesome battery system that now we can even take from our solar energy and collect it into a wall in the house, and then you can put energy back into the grid. Um, and all this kind of came about from the automotive industry and the desires to reduce the amount of pollution that we see in that. Also, we've developed hydrogen technology and other other sources of energy. Uh, Getting back to regenerative braking, we see an environmentally conscious consumer, and then we also see designers that are motivated around those consumer bases, and how this really affects the social construction is it's rudimentary. Uh, the drivers for these designs have shifted. It's very clearly from the economic inefficiency standpoint over to a uh, environmentally conscious standpoint, and there's infrastructures around those that work to promote and advance and benefit the design, and then there's some that work against it that are adverse to the designs. Um, I would say, as an artifact, regenerative braking generally falls into the socially conscious environmental bracket. It has been sort of slowed down in its progress by some of the infrastructure that's already in place, like refineries and trade unions and some of the manufacturing equipment that needs to be retrofitted for a leaner, greener product. But I would say that those are kind of spell out the political divide as well, because we have those economic interests that are trying to save money on all that retrofitting and all of that R&D that goes into the development when they can just keep making cars and making profits, versus another group of people who are more looking at the broader picture of how pollution plays a role in the lives of everyday people, and how there's the total carbon footprint that we're all trying to reduce, or should be. and and I think that there's these relevant social groups that that don't all play a role equally, and it kind of goes up and down. It fluctuates with the political atmosphere, and it fluctuates with uh, how much time we can devote to it when we're not distracted by some other major event in the world. And then there's other natural forces that play a role in how concerned we are about the environment. Whenever we see, like, the Hurricane Katrina really played a big role in how we focus more on the environment. But I think that the um, we aren't really going backwards with that. I think we're moving forward with the environmental cause, but it just sort of has an ebb and flow to it. Anyway, this is some food for thought, and this is Todd Lowry reporting about regenerative braking and the social contexts. Thanks for listening.